All right, guys. Strong Life Podcast, episode 503. Troy Shallow, Otto Zaccardo. Otto, first time you and I are chatting. I exchanged some messages with Troy. You guys are business partners in good performance. Am I saying that correct?
Good or good? Yeah.
Good. I can't
Yeah.
wait to get into it because I'm watching, the videos, the training, and it's getting me hyped up. And I'm like, when I saw videos and photos, I was like, thank the iron gods. It looks like there's some fucking kids that want to get jacked. It's like sometimes it evades my mind. I'm like, what the hell's going on with teenagers today? Do they not want to get jacked? And then I came across Troy's work and I said, I think the Iron Gods are almighty up in, are you in Natick,
Yeah.
Massachusetts?
Yeah, we're in Natick, Mass.
I
About
was
like
there.
25, 30 minutes outside Boston.
I love that area. It's beautiful. I was up there. I did a seminar in the fall right before COVID. So COVID was February, whatever that year was. I was there. I feel like sometime in October. Were you guys in business before COVID 5, 6 years ago?
No. That was so we started business 3 years ago, and during the COVID times we were still playing college football.
Oh, you guys are
And
young kids.
yeah, we were still playing college football, and everything shut down for COVID, and we just started training in my garage. We got a group of guys and started training in my garage at home during COVID.
What's so I know also New Jersey was like very strict with COVID. I know your area is like crazy liberal, so it was probably even tougher. For me, I was kind of hidden behind some other buildings. And it was interesting. People saw the dude in New Jersey. I forget his name, but they're like, Zach, why don't you take a stand? Why don't you stand up and do like him? I'm like, yo, because I'm fucking married with kids. I don't need to announce to the world that I'm running my gym like this fucking dummy who needs the attention. I was perfectly happy running the business with nobody knowing. Hidden. So let's get a little like a short background on both of you guys. Troy, I know you wrestled and played football,
Yep.
and Otto would love to hear, what's your background and also how you guys met. I like the training that I'm seeing with you guys, so I'm very excited to like deep dive into the training. So a little history of you guys would be awesome.
Yeah, I'll go first. I Otto and I are from the same town. We are one grade apart. He's 1 year older than me, so we grew up together, played Pop Warner together, played high school football together. We're always training together throughout high school and so forth. Went to Lincoln Sudbury High School in Sudbury, Mass. After after that, I went on to play football at Merrimack College, which is a 1AA FCS in Massachusetts, and then did a grad year playing football at UMass Amherst. After that, had a quick cup of coffee with like a startup professional league that ended up shutting down. They were trying to make it like the UFL and the XFL now, and it flubbed big time. But and then yeah, I wrestled in high school, and then after I finished playing football, I got into some powerlifting, did a couple powerlifting meets, and now training jujitsu a lot,
I see it
which I love.
competing. Yeah,
Yeah,
competing. I was like,
yeah,
this guy,
yeah,
this guy could wrestle. I saw the videos.
yeah,
Otto,
yeah.
what do you got, my
Uh,
bro?
So yeah, Troy and I are from the same town. We've been friends for a really long time. I think it was something where, we were two kids that really loved football and loved lifting weights and had this drive and passion for more. And I think something that's funny looking back on it now, we're in Troy's garage. We got rusty weights. I think I brought a junkyard tire from my yard that I was using. So we're flipping that just like, no one knows what it is to train hard around here. And I remember talking that, we were going to build or attempt to build the best gym around because there was no place for us to train. There wasn't anyone that really wanted to push it, that wanted to keep going. We were kind of like under recruited guys in high school. And that's really the bond that started, that ember that started. And then, yeah, we kept training together. I went as a preferred walk-on to Syracuse. I earned a full ride there. That was a big deal for me.
That's
That was
impressive.
one of the best times. Yeah, that was a big deal. Um, and then after that, I played a couple seasons of professional rugby with the American Raptors, and then got some kind of gnarly injuries. Had to take a step back, recover, and then recently started competing with USA Bobsled. So I
Oh,
figured
that's right.
as long as my legs still work, then I'm gonna keep going because it's kind of our thing. Is we just want guys to push and think bigger, set high goals. Um, but yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Try to keep it as brief as possible, but it's been one wild ride, and it seems to keep going. And we've been having a blast training, talking training, coaching guys up, and it's been really it's what we think sports should be all about. What the value of sports is kind of our journeys from like athletes to coaches, and that's why we stay kind of in the field because it's been pretty much our entire lives from like day one. So
Yeah, I love that you guys are still competing. How old are you guys? 20 something?
yeah, I'm 28. Troy's
I'm
26.
26. Yeah,
Man,
be
it's
27
amazing.
in June.
The training that I see, and on the blog, when I put this podcast up, I'll link up some of your Instagram videos from both of you guys, is really good. Who were some of the influences in the high school years? And then in college, I guess, were you also very much listening to the strength coach or asking to add some stuff? So let's kind of back up to those early. Were you guys doing the meathead thing in high school,
Yeah.
researching on a lot of kids are not doing that. You know who
Yes.
they do now? Every time I'd say to a kid doing something wrong, I'm like, listen, you're not Sam Sulek. You're not on, more drugs than a racehorse. So let's not do what you're doing. So who are you guys watching and listening to in high school, which was 10 years ago, not even?
Or they say, I saw this guy on TikTok doing it like this. I'm like, oh my
Just
God.
today.
Yeah,
I C-Bum does this. I'm like, bro, C-Bum is like five-time Mr. Olympia and on
way
more
different.
drugs. Yeah, you don't even eat breakfast, so we're in a fucking whole new world. So who was I would love to hear who were like two or three of your go-tos.
I remember reading a ton of DeFranco back in the day, just in that football sphere. And then when I was in college, I was getting a ton of extra stuff from Otto, who was out at Syracuse with his strength and conditioning coaches as well. But growing up for me, a lot was DeFranco, and then we had a PE teacher named Sean Miller who was awesome.
Wow.
He's the one who like molded us to kind of like the training style that we love and the training style that we give to kids nowadays. And he was a we'd go in there at 6 a.m. in the summer with him, and he would be like, all right, what do you got for us today? And he'd just kill us, like hard training, AMRAP, squats, deadlifts, everything. Like
Is he a football coach
ama-
too?
no, he was just a PE teacher and just
No sport
helped
coaching?
helped out with lacrosse, I believe, for a while. But yeah, he I would say is one of the biggest inspirations that like on us.
I love it.
He was
How old is
awesome.
he? How old do you think he is now? 10 years later?
46,
He'll get mad at
47
us. He'll get
maybe.
mad at us, whatever we say.
Well, I love hearing that a phys ed teacher was researching and deep diving strength and conditioning. So in New Jersey, me and my buddy Paul Collodi, we run the NHSCA, the National High School Strength Coaches Association. And so in the Northeast, New Jersey, New York, PA, Mass, the high school strength coach is just not a normal thing. But if you go Midwest and South, they've been having full-time high school strength coaches for decades, for 20, 30 years. And it's interesting that the Northeast has not evolved. And so I love when I hear of a PE teacher because they don't really get this knowledge in undergrad that he's doing research. So I'm going to do an outreach to him. I love that. So he was training you guys for football and you were wrestling. And then, Otto, what were you doing? Any other sports outside of
Yeah,
football?
so I played football. I started out with football, basketball, track. Basketball was like my first big sport. I thought, I was gonna play Division I basketball when I was younger. My brother kind of my younger brother took that dream. He did a way better job than I did. But I played football, basketball, and ran track. And when we would train with Miller, he was just this old school powerlifting guy. He just like hard training. I remember this workout will just be ingrained in my mind. Like those early like adolescent years where you're full of fury, and to have someone just say, pull up a trash can and say, all right, 355s on the bar, start deadlifting, and knowing like you're just throwing up in the trash can. I don't know if he was really supposed to do that. We can say like it was, I don't know what the guidelines are of that for a phys ed coach, but he really took us under our wing and just, you know,
Many
worked
people
so
are
hard.
against that. They're like, "Oh no, they worked hard. You made them tired. You're not a good strength coach." And I want to say, have you ever watched football or wrestling or basketball? They get fucking tired. And we need these kids to be in fucking shape, but we're trying to make everything so perfect. That's why I came across Troy's work. I was like, dude, somebody's actually doing real training. And I find it interesting that this conservative kind of outlook on training, everything's so perfect when you played three different sports, which I love. Troy, you were in the combative sports. Of course, I love that. And we know that we don't win when everything was just perfect. We'd never win in the fourth quarter because everybody's in shape. Like, of course, you win in the fourth quarter when the other team just breaks down. You win in the third period when you break your opponent or you fucking out muscle him and make him quit by putting him to his back. And that's why, all right, so maybe throwing up is maybe not what we're trying to do, but working your ass off has to be part of the program.
Yeah, absolutely. Otto always says when we're in the gym, we're training people, you have to do hard shit. You
Yes.
have to do hard shit. Like you're saying, football is a hard sport. It's a violent, physical, hard sport. Wrestling, very hard sport. Like you have to do hard shit to prepare your body for the demands of the sport.
Yeah. I remember going back on those guys that we were, inspired by in high school, just DeFranco stuff. We were in high school, so West Side Barbell was really cool to us. Like that just gritty, because we were in a garage. We were in a
Yeah.
garage. We looked like, we were just the guys in the garage lifting. We're freaking weirdos. That's so weird. Why you guys work so hard? That's so strange.
Yeah.
Who
And then
said that? Your teammates?
Oh,
just
tons of
where we're
people.
from, football is not a priority. It
Yeah.
is like an outlier sport, which is really interesting, especially when you go off and play high level athletics. It's encouraged. Like that's a huge thing. Like that's a big deal for us. We were like the outliers. It was a weird thing to dream about playing college football on a big stage. And we kind of bonded over that. And then coming back from college, it was interesting that there were almost no places in our area that offered kind of a really solid prep, like physical preparation, like training, so that when you step in that first day of college, you're ready to roll. We felt pretty ready, but that's because we just kind of were, trying to connect dots, scrambling around in a garage. So we thought that we would be the ones to say, well, that doesn't exist. That's an opening in the market. All right, let's get started. And yeah, it's been really good. People have responded really well. Troy actually convinced me that it would work because I didn't really think there would be enough more so like you said, I didn't think there were enough guys or athletes in the area that were willing to put in that work, that wanted to work that hard. I was like, we can't, this is not going to be feasible. We're going to get like four people. Like, no one's going to want to do this. And sure enough, I think we had one of our first years, we had a linebacker from Georgetown. We had him do like a shrug ladder, strap up to the bar, and just shrug 10 times, put as many plates as you can handle,
Oh
and
God.
back down. And he's puking in Troy's garage, and Troy's screaming at him, and we're blasting music.
Yes.
That was like the eureka moment where I looked at Troy, I said, all right, okay, all right, we'll do this. Like there are guys out there that want it that bad, and I think it's a really positive experience for everyone. We've got nothing but thumbs up from our guys.
Who
So
who came up with the gym name good or good?
That's
How did that happen?
that's just something we kind of always said. Like if something was better than good, it was good.
Ah,
And it's just kind of something we always like said. I don't know.
It's
There was no
it's become its own thing now.
yeah,
Good is
yeah.
its own thing. Like certain, we should probably do, a deep, like a writing exercise on what it means because it's a very subjective term that we use.
sure. Hmm.
Uh, it can be, really awesome, but you can't take yourself too seriously and you gotta just go after it. I don't know. Some things, something funny is good if it's just hilarious, like, oh, that's awesome. You're doing, you know, we had a max effort strict barbell curl competition with our buddies. Like that's good. Like it's not whether that translates to high
We need
performance.
more of that.
Oh
That
yeah, it
to
was awesome.
me
That's
is
good. That's what it
that
is.
is
It's
good.
like
We need more of that. And just thinking like how you came across Joe DeFranco, that is a starting place for many. I always tell people like I actually like harassed Joe for 6 months to do a consultation with me. And I remember taking a sick day from school, driving up to the racket. It was like a health and racket club, and I paid him 150 bucks cash. And it's so interesting. The back then, you didn't social media, I don't even know, maybe MySpace was out. I don't know, but I remember thinking I was going to first come across like the secretary, and then I would enter the storage closet. But it's just Joe. It's like in the storage closet, and it was each piece of West Side equipment. And what's interesting is a lot of people think the training, his early style of training, which was very intense. He followed a 4-day, West Side split or that West Side for skinny bastards. People think that that's like obsolete now. You need to sprint more and jump more. And I think the reason why we need to sprint and jump more, I would love to hear your thoughts on the kids you're training because you guys are young. I'm 20 plus years older than you. I want to hear what you're seeing today. I felt like we had to jump and sprint more because we don't have kids doing what you guys did. So, Otto, you went football, basketball, sprints. And then, Troy, you're playing football, you're wrestling. That built your athleticism was built into everything you did. So I almost feel like guys like you maybe wouldn't need as much jumping and all this quote unquote athletic stuff because it was already being done.
Right,
Today,
right.
our kids are so unathletic. So today, like at my high school, we warmed up with pickup basketball. Nobody knows how to play defense. The concept is like they're afraid, they fear body contact. It's really interesting that that whole lack of multiple sports and lack of street ball or street play has inhibited athleticism. I want to hear what you guys are thinking like that. And also, how many years have you been in business in your current space, not from the garage where you are now?
Our current space, we're going on. This is our second year at our current space. We're 1 full year in the garage. And then I think back to the toughness thing too. One of the things that we found is, and like the tough training, is that kids want to be tough. Like they want to, they just don't know what it takes or how to be tough nowadays. And I think that's part of like the reason they love our type of training and like hard nose training, loud music, and a basement gym. Like I think that's part of it. But in terms of like the sprinting and everything, kids aren't playing outside anymore. Like I was outside all the time as a kid, and I know Otto was too. Like always outside playing pickup basketball with friends in the neighborhood or going to the playground and stuff. And I agree that I think that definitely factors into what we're seeing now. Because you grow up playing in the street, like you grow up playing in the yard, like climbing trees and running around and doing stuff like that. And I believe that there is a lack of that now. Like I believe it was Buddy Morris who said there is a like a fundamental lack of GPP. Like no one like young kids
Physical
are not
literacy, he calls
prepared.
it. Physical literacy.
Yeah, yeah,
Such a
young
nerdy
kids are
word.
just so young kids are just not prepared anymore because they don't play.
Yeah, kids can't skip. And so it's so interesting that that is something we have to teach because my late 90s, mid 90s, when I started teaching, We did all that with first graders in phys ed. Skip, jog, gallop. Jumping is on 2 feet. Hopping is on 1 feet. I hear strength coaches say jump. If it's on 1 foot, it's a hop. Like they don't understand the words. So you guys are maybe the last of the Mohicans, the last of the kids who were playing multiple sports. Or were you at a small high school? Did you kind of have to do multiple sports? Because that's where it seems to be common. Like how many kids were in your graduating class? 400, 300?
Uh, I
Yeah, I
think
think my class is about 400, 450 maybe.
That's
Auto.
that's a big school.
yeah, it's like four to 500. I don't know what it
Yeah.
is right now, but it was one of the bigger schools in the area. Um, I think, I mean, when we get into the summertime, we go 6 days a week and split all kinds of things up. So we still do that heavy lifting. But when you talk about preparation physically, we've gotten athletes that have come from these corrective exercise specialists, biomechanics specialists, and they said they've been training or going to see specialized programming for, 6 months or something.
Hmm.
We're like, okay, well, you probably should have been doing another sport. And then we have them do a squat, goblet squat, just looking at him, and it looks horrible, like crazy.
Yep.
And it's just, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's just a lot of it is teaching the fundamentals of just moving. And I don't really, I don't know why there's so few places that just does that. Maybe there are and we don't see it. We haven't been in the space for an extended period of time, but we just get a lot of guys leaving gyms to come and train with us that seem really underprepared. A lot of them are multi-sport athletes. If an athlete asks us, we say, "Hey, it's your choice." We always try to say it would probably benefit you if a football player is leaning between track or, training with us. We'll say you should probably run track. Like you should go run, like get that sprinting in because
Yep.
even in the Northeast, you get so much snow that season you're kind of limited. So if you can get an opportunity to get on an indoor surface and run, do it. Take it. Because otherwise you're just, lifting is great, but yeah, you have to run and jump. And then incorporating stuff. Troy loves the med ball volleyball. We have a lot of different like games and warm-ups that we do
Where
with.
your guys' gym I see sometimes on big turf. Are you inside of a sports complex?
No,
So we were
we rent out turf.
yeah,
Yeah, you
Oh,
get it.
okay.
yeah.
Go ahead. Let's hear
We're
that.
we're we're renting out turf for our pro day guys. We got a group of pro day guys this year. Um and it's 15 degrees for the whole 4 or 5 months of pro day training, so we had to get sprinting in. So we're renting out indoor turf. Um and then in the summer we just use outdoor turf at local high schools, grass fields up the street and so forth.
Yeah. I mean, I love the training. I see heavy lifting, jumping, throwing, bands attached to body weight exercises, lifting exercises, odd object lifting. So, where are you kind of pulling information from? And then how do you guys sit down and map out a program? Like, for example, I like to do a 3 week mini cycle, kind of a intro week with some moderate reps on a barbell lift, then going heavier those 3 weeks. So kind of a linear periodization with a conjugate exercise selection. How do you organize?
Coach?
Oh, okay. Um, I thought you were gonna take it. So typically, everyone is a little bit different. So first, we kind of just see where an athlete is. But a lot of it just ends up being a pretty standard derivative of a conjugate variation. We'll lift heavy, fast. When they first get in, we get guys for a short period of time. So they'll be coming back from like a lot of when we get really cranking, we'll have a bunch of college guys. They just came from a season. Their bodies are probably banged up. They have a few injuries that might not be so severe that they need to get surgery, but they just need to get their base back. So a lot of volume, a lot of time under tension. That's usually 3 week blocks. And then depending on how they respond, we'll switch it up. It's pretty individualized, so it's not always the same for everyone. An
Yep.
athlete needs to work more on their soft tissue, like just joint stability. Big guys need a lot more like
Yeah.
low impact plyometrics, and we might not have them on the same conjugate speed method as a skill guy. So we really try to look at the individual and change up. We're not really rigid in we have this one way of doing it. You have to do it this way. Everyone that comes in follows this same skeleton. It's like we
Yes.
6 weeks to get this guy as high performing as possible. What metrics are we going to track? What do they need for 3 or 4 weeks? And then where can we get them so they're off to either spring ball or their season better than they were at? Because we don't have the luxury most of the time of doing long, drawn out cycles of training. So it's kind of everything is a little bit different for each guy. And especially as young coaches, we try not to stick like, this is our way of doing it. It has to be
Sure.
this way. It can be any type of way, but as long as it's done hard and we track our metrics and it's progressed, then it usually has a positive outcome.
Let me ask you two questions before Troy jumps in on this. How are you tracking? Are you using a software system, and what metrics or technology are you using? And what about like high school or middle school kids who stay, for us, some kids stay with us for years. Some kids train just in the off season, and some kids start with us in middle school and go all the way through high school. So they might start in seventh grade and do 6 years of training. So talk to me about the tracking and any software or technology, and then outside of kids who are coming and going.
So I'll talk on technology and then I'll let Troy take over. So we're a little bit anti-technology in the sense that force plates is not staring at a screen on a force plate is not necessarily going to help you jump higher. That being said, we do have software that the programs are on. We teach every athlete coming through how to log their weights so that every single set is logged. We're looking at it, seeing what's improving, what's not. That's a big way for us to track supplemental and accessory work because
What do
usually
you guys use? What technology for that?
we use TrueCoach for
Yep.
customized programming and then Train Heroic because of the scalability. We just implemented that this fall and winter. We've been looking at a few different options, and that was the one we decided to. It seemed like the most scalable and accessible of the platforms in terms of making programs available. So that's what we went with. But we still like the interface of TrueCoach and how that's just what we started with. We got that from there's a weightlifting coach here in Massachusetts, Dan Maroney, who trained us for a little bit. We learned a lot from him. He used it. We liked it. We had done it as athletes with a coach, so we kind of knew how that interface worked, and we still use it. And then we use VBT, like just a
Yeah.
bar tracking system, like the Vitruve or OVR or any of those.
OVR is awesome.
Yeah, we have some tendos that
Oh,
we've had
wow.
here and there from old strength coaches because we've done college we ran a full college summer conditioning for Merrimack for football and hockey this
Hockey.
past
Yeah.
summer. So that was a big deal because
You
it
went
was
there or they sent kids to you?
we just went there and took over the summer. They needed someone.
Awesome.
It was just friggin' Troy and I walking in there with this, 60 guys we haven't seen before and being like, all right, you're listening to us. You're doing what we say. Let's get this done. And it was pretty successful. It was awesome. It was quite
Yeah,
the grind of
it
a
was great. Coach Genetti, he was when I was played at Merrimack, he was the defensive coordinator. He just took over as head coach this past year, like last January, and it was like a week before the summer workouts were starting, and their strength coach just like resigned. And I just happened to call him about a kid. He like ran into one of the kids we trained, and he texted me about him. So I just called him and was going to talk with him, and he goes, "Hey, any chance you guys can run our summer strength and conditioning?" I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And the kids loved it, and
And then the hockey coach was like, "Go!"
yeah,
He saw us through the glass and watched one of our sessions and was like, "I got to get these guys training my team."
I
Like,
love hearing this. And what Merrimack is D1 AA? Is that
yeah,
where?
they're one double A. They call it FCS now, but yeah,
Yep.
one double A. They play
I love it.
they actually just went independent, but previously they played um Robert Morris, Duquesne, St. Francis in Pennsylvania,
Oh yeah.
that
I
whole
took my
league, Central
daughter to visit St.
Connecticut.
Francis.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They played
Yes.
Bucknell this past year.
That's where my daughter's
Um,
gonna go.
yeah.
Yep.
So that's who we played when we were there. that's who
And
they play and stuff. They
I
they
know
they played
hockey
Air Force
is
this year.
they played Air Force.
Yeah, that was big for them. They went all the
That
way out
is
to Air
cool.
Force, and we were running them this summer. Like, you're gonna be in Colorado, you're not gonna be able to breathe. Like, you got to get in shape. Like,
Oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
that's
coach is
right.
like, I've been in Colorado. Like, I know exactly how it feels to run out there. Like,
Yeah, that's where my rugby team was based. And boy, those first 2 weeks of acclimation to that altitude, uh, it's a lot.
Yeah, they
Uh,
say it's quite tough. I love that. The football coach was open-minded and wasn't like, "Hey, we got to go the traditional route. We need to hire somebody full-time." I love that they were like, "We got guys that could do it." And I love that the hockey coach simply saw you guys and was like, "Dude, we need these guys because some sports still in 2025 don't fucking believe in strength training." To me, I want to say, "Bro, this ain't fucking 1972. It ain't going to turn to fat. You're not going to lose your flexibility and all these dumb things." And it's if I was a sport coach and I had two guys like you, and I'd be like, "You mean you could come and train my guys and make my life easier and help us win more?" Yes, let's go. I'd fundraise, I would just find a way. But some places are just obstinate and resistant. So I love that you guys did this. And I know hockey in your area is crazy serious.
yeah,
Northeast is like the place.
the Merrimack hockey team was. I think they play in the Hockey East, which is like Northeastern, Providence, BC, like all the UNH, UMaine, like all of them are phenomenal hockey schools. So it was great to get them and train them, um, try
it
and
was
make them
also
more durable.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was good
Talk
to get
about it a
it
little bit.
was
I'd
good
love to
to
hear about the training that you guys did. Anything unique you feel was you did?
it was good to get football was pretty straightforward. I mean, that's stuff that we know. Like that's stuff that we've done. It was a little bit tricky just managing. We had one other guy helping us, but the two of us managing all these athletes at once. We printed out our sheets and the same thing. We got a little off topic with the technology, but stuff we
Yes,
used a
sorry.
thing or two. No, that was I we get excited, you know.
I
Stuff we
Jump
blew
all
use
it. It's
over the
my
there.
place.
fault.
Yeah, stuff we use there that we also use in the gym is simple but pretty effective. Just accountability of how many hours did you sleep? How many meals did you eat? We didn't use it with these guys, but stuff that we use at the gym is those grip strength trackers.
Yeah.
Good consistent way to measure an athlete's CNS just to make sure that we don't send a guy in for a heavy squat, some sort of heavy intense day. They're pulling, 40 pounds below their baseline. That's a recipe for injury in this.
Now you guys sound like pussies and the podcast is over.
Exactly, yeah, exactly, which
You
is
were
why I
killing it
said,
until the fucking CNS comment.
yeah, that yes, but at the same
Just
time,
kidding.
the guys that we get that, hey, I'll take that. That's me. That's my soft.
Troy was like, I don't even know this guy.
Yeah, that's fine. That's my deal. But just because we get something that I ran into was I always wanted to push so
Yeah,
hard. Like I could
it
spend,
helps manage load.
yeah, I think my sophomore year,
Smart.
I was spending from as soon as the gym opened, before I did, I think maybe freshman year, before I did track, as soon as the gym opened, like 5 hours every single day, full body lift, maxing out on volume, like everything I could possibly do. Um, I don't think it really is a good thing. I probably had more tweaks and,
Yeah.
had struggled gaining weight and probably could have made more progress than I did. So it's a way to put a cap on those guys that always want to do more. And we like getting athletes that we like being the ones to say, hold on, like
Hmm.
slow down, reduce it. No, your load is managed. Like you cannot do more. Is it all right if I go to the gym and hit like this other lift
Yeah, they
on
go
the
later.
weekend? No, you have to rest. You can do, we have full mobility sheets or stuff they can do on the weekends when they're not with us, that we know is not going to impede that. But obviously, guys still go rogue. They
We'd
want.
rather have a guy that we have to say, all right, tone it down a little
Oh
bit,
yeah.
than be like, hey man, you got to pick it up. Like I don't know what the hell you're doing. You're not like you're not eating, you're not sleeping, you're not stretching outside the gym. You're not stretching before bed. Like you're bullshitting your accessories. Like why are you not progressing your supplemental work? Like we'd rather have someone who are like, hey man, like take it a little lighter today. Like your brain's fried, you're doing a lot, as opposed to like the other guy who it's like, what the hell are you
Agreed.
doing? Like, you
Yeah.
know,
There's a
We
lot
get
of
both.
kids like that
Yeah,
that
we
don't
get both.
do the work.
Yeah.
What go to the question on are you guys getting a lot of middle school and high school kids? And if you do get high school kids, are you having to manage what they're doing at school? You know, even being said, like some usually football still runs a weight room if there's no strength coach. So do you guys train a lot of middle and high school kids? What's your core group of people at your gym now?
we got a bunch of high school kids in right now. In about a month, all the college football players will be home and stuff. But right now, this past, winter and spring was a bunch of high school kids. Youth is starting up next week. And yeah, I guess we run into issues sometimes where it's like you got to come to the team workouts, and the team workout is just run by like one of the coaches on staff who doesn't know, who's never strength trained before, and it's like, okay, and then or this kid could just come do what's best, for him, which is going to end up benefiting the team
Where they could
in the
hire you
long run.
guys. They could just
We've
outsource
done
to you
that
guys
too.
with the booster club, which would
Yeah.
be great.
That's how we
Yes.
started actually. We started doing teams where we would just run the high school strength and conditioning. Those were our first teams that we did before we got our space. But um, typically, a lot of it is just like getting fundamental movement patterns down.
Yes.
I'll use smaller words. Typically, it's just hold weight, squat, teach them the correct movements, and then progress through that. I think the biggest thing that we run into that seems to be a foreign concept is just progressive overload. Like, hey, you did this weight this week, especially when it comes to the younger kids. Like, we've gotten kind of our first batch of freshmen, sophomores in, um, and just having them understand that if you do 5 pounds the next week and just keep doing that on pretty decent volume,
It's going to add up over time.
yeah, that's all you need to
Like,
get started.
I found
You
athletes
don't
can't
get
do
to
that. They're like, I'm at a high school full time, and sometimes I'm like, yo, man, you have been actually not adding weight to the bar for a year. Like you're not getting stronger. The program works, but you're refuting it. Or they're just it's very strange that I also think the struggle at the high school level is I feel like kids today are coached so much in club sports that they're sometimes when they get a little freedom, which I at my high school I do a lot of like, hey, you got this lift choice, this lift optional X. So at our private sector, we just get different kids. But I like what I'm seeing with you guys. Speaking of football, this is an interesting question for football guys. Is something missing in football training where we still see a lot of just, because I think of the training I'm watching on your social, on your Instagram. We squat, we bench, we clean, we jump, we sprint. Is there shit that's missing that needs to go in between all that? Did you guys bring any of that to Merrimack when you coached? What was that, last summer or the
yeah, it's
previous?
over this past summer.
Yeah. Did you guys bring anything unique? I feel like pretty much I'm looking at all programs. I was just at Columbia University, squat racks, med balls. Some big schools don't even do box jumps, like stuff that we think, hey, is normal activity. Like, no, we actually don't have boxes to jump on. I'm like, what? This is a major university. You're not jumping?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we believe like if you get strong in the squat, strong in the bench, and strong in, carries or pull-ups, that's going to carry over to just about everything else. Like that's going to build strength towards every other lift and every other part. I wouldn't say there was anything new that we brought to, the team training at Merrimack and the college and stuff this summer, except for, we did a lot of banded stuff, like banded pin press for bench, banded,
Nice.
reverse lunge from pins, band
I s-
resisted, Bulgarian jumps and single leg jumps, which the kids seem to really like. We were, doing a ton of med ball throws and rotational med ball work and stuff like that that I thought that they really liked and was beneficial.
I like
Adding
your
chains to stuff.
yes, I like your banded lunge. It's like you're lunging and the band is pulling you back. What inspired that movement?
That was just us messing around in the gym one day, just doing reverse lunges, and then with the band attached to the rack behind you, so you have to keep that forward lean and step forward, step out. That was just us messing around in the gym one day. Like, I think this would be, if we started implementing this, this makes sense. Like that's where some of our stuff comes from is just us doing, we call it R&D by ourselves, just research and development, just in the gym, just messing around, figuring out things that are like, this is actually beneficial. This is pretty good. We can start implementing this.
I
Yeah.
like it. That
There are a few things that come to mind in terms of that I don't know if I've seen, but and it usually we don't always do it for everybody, but stuff like low impact plyometrics or really heavy banded isometrics, stuff like that. And I remember reading, I forget
what
what.
kind of banded isometrics? I'm not sure if I saw any videos of you guys. Maybe I did.
That's that's something that I've kind of a lot of stuff that sometimes we implement is just stuff that I use that I found really helpful. Like it's not necessarily widespread in the programming, but like for vertical jump, or if I'm ever stuck in a movement like that I really can't get the hang of, and we've had success with other guys with it, is loading up a really heavy band and then holding the isometric in that position that you're really weak in.
Hmm.
That seems to be really helpful for getting through sticking points. It's easy on the joints. I don't particularly know the science behind why it works. I like it. Maybe it's just a mental thing. Uh,
Psychological. Yeah.
yeah, it could be. And then a lot of things that we started playing with was horizontal force projection. That was a big piece for my bobsled training that we were looking into. Selfishly, a lot of things come from me just wanting to improve my athleticism and say, oh, okay, maybe it works. I
But
put,
that is the best coaches. They
yeah,
train and they experiment on themselves and they say, "Oh, I know what this feels like to do."
yeah,
Like you guys were talking about the shrugs. What were you doing? Adding weight to the bar every set, like a pyramid up then
Yeah,
down with that
shrug
kid?
ladder.
it's the
Well,
shrug ladder. It's the bar
yes.
10 reps, plate on each side, 10 reps, another plate, another plate, another plate, another plate, as many as you can do till you can pick it off the pins, and then 10 reps all the way back
Down.
down. I got that
So
strength
I
coaches.
remember you mentioned Joe DeFranco. Joe and I did two seminars together, one at each of our gyms. We called it Lost Secrets of Strength. It was like modeled after like Brooks Cubic and all those guys. But I remember they did the triceps death bench, which was one board for certain reps, two, three, four. Then it was like drop sets. And I think Joe and I got away from those intensity techniques as him and I got older. We got a little beat up. We quote unquote got smarter. So I think it's very important for young coaches like yourselves to be lifting because you kind of have this better training knowledge and you're really testing the capability of what the human body and mind could do. That's why I like young coaches who are doing what you guys are doing. It makes sense to me. So go ahead, Troy. Were you gonna say something about like the
No,
intensity and
no, I was just gonna say,
the
like, you you
different
you have to
training?
you have to live it. Like, you have to keep training. Like, I remember being in college and that we'd have, grad assistants who looked like they'd never touched a weight in their life. And I'm like, how, I know no one in here is gonna listen to you because you don't even know how are we supposed to listen to you? You've never lifted before. Like, and I think that helps, like, when kids see us, we're still training, we're still doing it, we're still competing. Like, that helps our case of like, okay, yeah, these guys really do know what they're talking about. they're training themselves. Like, all right, yeah, I'll listen. Like,
Kids judge us. It is the
yeah,
truth. I say it
yeah.
all the time. I love what you're saying about the grad assistants. I say this so much as well. And, Joe Ken said that to me. He said, you have to understand a lot of strength coaches who are younger, like your age, they actually don't have your background. He said many of them don't even have a an athletic background. And then I think this group that's graduating college now, they went to high school during COVID, so they may have missed 2 years. So they don't even know what it's like to really strength train and apply that training to see if it worked in sport. I have a real clear memory of how my training was so wrong, kind of like what Otto was talking about, and how it inhibited my athleticism and performance. So I have a reference point, as do you guys with all the sports you played. I love it. When you mentioned the horizontal band stuff, there's a video of you, Troy, doing almost like you're on a 45-degree back extension. You almost go back like a glute ham raise, and then you're punching bands out. And that seems more like a something that Otto may have come up with for bobsledding, but also, were you a lineman, Troy? I forget what your position was.
I was a linebacker in high
Yes,
school,
linebacker.
defensive end at Merrimack, so I was doing a ton of, you know, punch and engage with offensive
Yes.
linemen. Then when I went to UMass, I switched over to fullback. But yeah, that is just a that's something I came up with training our D lineman last year. My brother Nick Martino, who just had his MMA debut, he trained with us last year for his pro day, and then when that was done, he just had his first MMA fight. We just went to watch. It was awesome. But that's something that I just started doing with them. And it's just for exploding through your hips and punching out and creating, like Otto's talking about, horizontal force and just in a different way with your hands, with your hips, and exploding into, an offensive lineman, or if you're an offensive lineman, exploding into a defensive lineman and so forth. And the guys like it. We compare that, contrast it with some, explosive med ball tosses or some fast DB bench, boom, 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 boom.
Yep, love that.
Pair that with the punch. Yeah, that's a good one. That's one of my favorites. I'm definitely gonna bring that back for the kids this summer and so forth.
Are you utilizing, I think about this a lot. I was having a conversation with the coaches in New York City. um, Sometimes the NFL will have a hand fighting specialist. There's not too many of them out there. Ben Creamer is at University of Washington. He also does their sports science, so it kind of makes him like an anomaly that he's got such a rare skill set. But he's a judo black belt. He's like has boxing, so he does hand fighting with the guys. And of course, you wrestled, so it was natural for you. I'm still so shocked at how many football players just don't go into football if football players don't wrestle as linemen. Are you teaching your linemen any hand fighting drills, like any sport specific, legitimate sport specific work?
We'll work with them. Like we had Josh Atwood, who wrestled in high school, and he just finished training with us for his he just did his pro day. He just finished at UMass, like 3,000 career snaps, stud. But he was helping out at the gym the other day, and he was working with a couple of the high school linemen, just working hand placement and hand fighting and how important it is. And I think that stuff is super important. I want to get some of the kids this summer, like my brother, who is a defensive lineman at Sacred Heart. I want to get some of the linemen and some of the kids to come to jujitsu with me. Like right up, like it's right upstairs. It's in the same building as us. I want them to come to jujitsu, work. That teaches you body control. It teaches you good hand placement. It teaches you how to, work in a close space and so
Yes.
forth. I think
I,
that
I
stuff is
noticed that.
awesome.
Where the wrestling mats? So what's in your building? Wrestling, jujitsu, what else?
Yeah, so above us is Alpha Nerds Jiu-Jitsu school. I
That's
think
the wrestling mats I see.
those are the
Yeah.
mats. Yeah, there's a wrestling program that uses them, but upstairs the jiu-jitsu gym. I believe yeah, Dave, he does MMA training. He does all kinds of fight training up there, but
It's
he
so good for
have you
athletes.
found have you found that that type of training, like boxing, wrestling, like that type of training has a pretty significant positive impact, especially with linemen who need to use their hands. You found that?
100%. And I find also, I've been saying this a lot. I try to encourage the football players at my school who are linemen. You guys should all wrestle, learn to hand fight with your eyes closed. And they openly say, I don't want to. It's too hard. I can't stand doing the same moves over and over again. Well, a basketball player, they walk out and they start shooting free throws, layups, and rebounds from the time they're in elementary school through the NBA. You have to do that. But what I'm finding is, Otto, your thing is like, you got to do hard shit. This generation, they don't want to do hard. They want comfortable. I know the weather gets very bad up by you guys, by us, not as bad. But if it does snow around here, you will not see kids saying, I'm going to go out and make money. They're going to say, fuck that. I don't need to make money. I'm taking a day off. And I'm finding that bleeds into sports. And also, I find that sport coaches, if you want a winning program for your team, then you should work with the other teams in the school and support and feed one another. So I also believe that these wrestlers that aren't tough, they should play football or lacrosse. So they're running and hitting and taking hits. If you're not strong, you probably need to lift with the football team because they're going to force you to lift heavy. It may not be the best technique and it's imperfect, but you're really learning to struggle and strain against weight and you're learning to compete. So there's so much of that. And then the skill guys, I love basketball for the skill guys because of the way basketball requires you to sprint. It's like the most true speed and agility or game speed. I'm not a fan, as you guys said, kids training at these other places, they come to you and they cannot do one pull up. And it's really criminal because now your back is against the wall. They spent 6 months. Now you've got 6 weeks, maybe 3 months to prepare them for sport. Then we may not see them in season. It's no longer enough time. I felt like in my early days of coaching, I didn't need a lot of time to get a kid to make a transformation that was significant enough to make an impact in sport. Now I find that they don't eat enough, they don't sleep enough, they just are missing so much foundational work, whether it's nutrition, training, the mentality, that making progress is becoming just a much longer process. And of course, this world, adults and younger generation, don't have patience for it because they're used to swiping every 5 seconds. So I really have not trained like killers like we once did back in those early days. And by the way, you guys mentioned Team Builder. Who's the guy that owns Team Builder? Why am I messing up his name? He played football at Johns Hopkins. I'm gonna look him up. With one of the first kids that we trained. It's dang it, I don't have his. I can't believe I don't. Dang it, I'm forgetting his name.
It
But
it
one of the
is it is pretty remarkable
yeah.
sometimes, like Otto was saying earlier. Like we will get kids from another gym that's supposed to be this fancy, like, oh, we are corrective exercise, we are, this is how you train. And they come here and they can't do a basic movement like a goblet squat, and you look at them and you're like, so what were you doing there? Like
A push up. A
you
push
can't like
up.
you couldn't do a push up. Yeah, like you can't do the
People think
basics,
I'm
the most
crazy when I say
basics of
that.
strength training. Like, what were you doing there? I don't understand.
So
Like,
you guys mentioned hockey. We have hockey clubs in our area. Kids are playing hockey in August. And I remember training a hockey player who was in 10th grade. And he's like, I go to my own trainer. He didn't know how to dumbbell bench. Shoulders were all hunched over. He didn't even know how to lap the dumbbells when he was done. Just kind of curled them down to the ground, which
yeah,
if somebody leaves weights under you, you're going to chop your fingers off. So no concept of safety, of exercise technique, and you want to go and talk to the parents. And when I make videos, people look at me, they're like, Zach is an asshole. He's always ranting. I'm trying to protect the kids and explain to parents like what you do and where you're taking your son. It may sound special, but they're just bullshitting you. So I made that video. Did you see the kid who went backwards on the squat bar?
Yeah, he had the safety bar on him, sat down
Could have
on the
died.
box and just
Could have.
tipped right
So
back over.
think about that, like where we are, all this information. That coach didn't have the kid even squatting in the squat rack. His spotters were just standing there, but they didn't know what
Standing
was
on the
really.
side, they were just standing on the sides. There was no
Yeah,
one
they
behind
weren't
them or anything.
really truly spotting.
Yep.
And then, of course, I also blame social media. We feel like we have to keep sharing stuff. That's how people find out about us. Maybe this video is going to catch mom and dad's eye and they're going to believe in our work. And it skews the work that you do. And I got to tell you, when growing up in this business, you think back 20 something years ago, if somebody said, "Hey, Zach, one day you're going to have to learn to be a video editor," I'd be like, "Fuck you talking about? I'm coach, dude." And the last business seminar I did with Joe DeFranco, he said, "I hate to say it, but if I was starting over now, my first hire wouldn't be another coach. It would be a videographer." And I said, "Oh, Joey D, you fucking broke my heart saying that." And it's like, that's what you would need. That's how you would, you're documenting everything. And I honestly think
It's a part of the job now. Like
we
that is
share, but we share so much and nobody's smarter from it. We talk about the need to train in season or train year round.
Yep.
I've, you mentioned the kids training at these corrective places. Being in a high school has given me more of a look at to what's really happening because I'm training a large number. Well, if a girl tears her ACL in soccer, I won't see her until the summer. So she'll be going through rehab for 10 months. She will come back 10 months later unable to do a full body weight squat. Guys, I tore my ACL training for early days MMA, called it No Holds Barred Fighting. I think I was who's 28 here? Otto, you are, or Troy?
I
28.
am.
I think that's when my surgery was 28, 27. So 22 years ago. Rehab was like not mind blowing, but I remember 2 weeks later doing walking lunges. 2 weeks
yes.
later. And
So
I'm
Yes.
talking 10 months later, I got kids that are squatting halfway down and their
yeah.
legs look like this. No hamstrings, no quad muscle, no glutes. And I'm thinking to myself, what did physical therapists do? I
Yeah,
actually
what
asked
did
that
what did you do? How are you cleared to play right now?
I
What the
asked
hell
that
did you
question
just do?
on it was Twitter back then. Uh, and I said, physical therapist, I know all of you are different, but I said, is it common for an athlete to 10 months after ACL be unable to squat? What are you guys doing out there? And dude, there was like a million replies. Kelly Starrett texted me. He goes, "Hey, thanks for blowing up the internet today." Like, with asking that question because, and you know what his response was? He's like, "That is criminal." uh, uh, to hold on to an athlete and not even get them better, he's like, that's actually criminal. And so we want to see athletes strong and tough and powerful. And then we got kids who are trained with private trainers who can't do a goblet squat or a push up, something that was done in first grade PE,
Yeah.
20 years ago. So there's more information there before, but my question is always why is it's not reaching the right people? I think maybe other coaches are consuming it, maybe some local people are consuming it, but I just feel like there's so much information out there, but we're not reaching enough people because I see more uh, poor training today than before. Not just online, but if I walk into a gym to buy a protein shake, I see it.
So one thing that it's funny you say that because one thing that I like to think, obviously we're pretty young in this field, but one thing that I think that we do a good job of, we don't have everything right, is using the big, heavy, intense environment to get guys to learn the little things. Like when you talk about breathing mechanics, like proper rib cage placement, this flashy social media stuff, we use the heavy, intense stuff to get guys to listen and fine tune the little things. Whereas I think because sports science has progressed to a point where you get all these highly detailed, this really elaborate research into various pieces of sprint mechanics, foot placement, hip alignment, this muscle, muscle imbalances and ratios. Everyone's focused on that because there's all this literature about it. But then you lose throwing up in a trash can. Like, yeah, that stuff's really helpful for a guy that's reached his upper threshold of what his genetics can be for. And now we're trying to get a 1% improvement, hundredths of a second on his time for sprinting, or 2 kilograms on a max effort lift or something. That's when that stuff, yeah, then you really have to hammer it. But it seems like people have gone that way toward those minute details and forgotten about the stuff that matters, which is, yeah, this kid needs to, okay, correct his muscle imbalances and his shoulders. He needs to be able to do pull-ups and push-ups first before we get into all this science. He doesn't even know
Yes.
what you're saying to him. And then, like, one thing that we were talking about, the Nordic hamstring curl, that's like a big, look at Tyreek Hill do it. I kind of like to use that as like a breathing and bracing tool. Like, look how much better I can get you in this movement that you really want to do, like some sort of athlete you saw on TikTok. Let me teach you how to breathe and brace and have the stretch reflex at the bottom, or control it with your hips forward and have that perfect alignment. And then they're like, oh, it works. It'll work even better when you breathe like that and keep your rib cage down when you're under a bar squatting or when you're benching or doing. So I think we've done a good job of taking things that look crazy, or even Troy doing, Zercher catches or all these crazy lifts. Wow, that's awesome. Well, we'll teach you how to do it if you listen to these small things, and trying to kind of almost slip in
Yeah. Good
really
teaching.
good, yeah, technique training. But it seems like a lot of places want to start with the technique and hip placement and all these minute pieces of performance training and completely forget, all right, like, you want to play sports, you want to play a contact sport, well, you're going to get hit. So all the, piriformis stretches and, internal, external rotator training that I'm going to
Kids
be
say
having
that
to do
stuff.
with spaghetti bands. Like,
Yeah.
that's all well and good, but I tell this story all the time. I had a teammate who's from the middle of nowhere down south. He had a rusted bench set in his yard. He would catch animals in the backyard and run hills nonstop.
Damn.
And he was better than almost every single guy that I knew that came from the
Where was he
sub.
from? Virginia, Georgia?
I think he's from Mississippi.
There you go.
I'll give him a
Dude,
shot. He just had the longest rush in the UFL history since it started. Jarvion, his stories were awesome. And he would tell me how he would train just working his ass off in nowhere. I think his school was like, I think he told me it was like 2 hours away or something. Like,
what the
he
hell?
was just working. But I tell that story to kids, like, you think you need to do internal, external, or balance on, work on your balance. There's a kid in the middle of nowhere with a rusted weight set, and you won't even have a prayer at beating him, at competing against him, at even being on the same level.
Yep.
Uh, so if you miss that piece of it, just the grueling hard work, then all that other stuff, it might make you feel good, and then you might say, well, it's not it's not for everybody. You're just, those guys are freaks. That was a big point of contention that Troy and I have with, like, training is, that's a freak athlete. You can't do that because it's free for us to believe in a kid, and we've seen some crazy transformations, like
Let me
like
ask
just
you guys this with it makes me think of this. I've seen all kinds of injuries through football and wrestling and soccer. Soccer, ACLs, football. I saw a kid fracture a T-spine. We've seen, dislocated shoulders, torn labrums, torn ACLs, all kinds of ankle injuries. Um, but in baseball, baseball, I've seen kids. I saw a kid break his elbow while pitching, middle school kid, and all I thought was, he probably can't do one push-up. Forget a pull-up, a push-up. How do you guys communicate with parents who are coming in? It's a baseball player or football player. The baseball dad says, I need you to do, arm care with my son and core strength. And then the football dad is like, hey, do speed and agility with him as if like he's already too strong and he doesn't need it. What's the communication style look like?
well, a lot of guys come from the success stories of the guys before them. So, Troy, you could probably tell the Gemelli story with our baseball guys and
Oh
how
yeah,
that's worked
yeah.
out.
So we had a kid, Christian Gemelli. He played baseball at Merrimack. His junior year, he had an awful season. Like injured for, and was out for a bit. Came back, like batted like 112 or like something terrible. Got injured again, was out for a bit, came back, had a really bad season,
What were the injuries he
and
was getting?
think he had a foot, like a really bad ankle sprain, and then his finger, believe it or not, I think he broke
Um,
his finger.
broke his thumb.
Thumb, yeah,
He
his
was
thumb.
playing through this stuff. Like he's a tough kid. He was playing through these
Yeah,
injuries.
yeah. And he was like, I'm just gonna take because baseball, high school and college, I played baseball all summer. All summer, there's summer baseball, summer baseball. College kids come home, they just finished their long ass college baseball season, and they immediately go into summer baseball. And it's like,
Crazy.
okay. But he decided after that year, he's like, I'm not gonna play baseball this summer. Like, I'm gonna take this summer off from playing baseball and just train and get strong and get fast. And went back in the fall for fall ball. So trained with us the entire summer. Ended up getting his, front. He set the Merrimack baseball team record with a 370 front squat. He's like a 180, 85-pound kid. 370 front squat. And then a 340 decline bench. We switched him to decline bench just because it's a little less stress on the shoulders. And he goes back to fall ball, and he's got the fastest exit velocity coming off his bat on the whole team. And he goes and he has a phenomenal, fall ball, has a phenomenal spring, and ends up hitting like 15 home runs and 15 stolen bases. Top like he was like top two in the league in home runs and stolen bases. And he comes back to us after that, and we had him, we took him, and kids see the younger kids, younger baseball kids see the progression of Christian and see what happened before and after. And then when he comes back and he helps out, helps us out a little bit, the kids understand, okay, not I'm gonna listen. Like, he went through the ranks, he's like, they see where he started, where he finished it, what the work did for him and how it benefited him. And I think that's an easier sell almost to the kids to buy into that.
Yeah, Christian, he was a really smart athlete, and he was a
Yeah.
guy who'd been doing baseball specific work with this arm care and shoulder care. And he had gotten to the point where this isn't helping me. Like I can't make it through a season. My body is toast. So kudos to him too, because he in a way he did a lot of research himself. He's a smart dude. Um, but all it took from us was just modifying training just a little bit, still implementing arm care, still implementing stuff that's safe on the shoulders. Like Troy said, decline bench, neutral grip bench,
I
nothing.
haven't heard decline bench since Dorian Yates' Blood and Guts.
Guys with
Decline bench is
shoulder deal,
awesome.
It
yeah,
is.
we takes the pressure off, and then we pair that with the that neutral grip
Neutral
bar.
bar.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a million different ways to get stronger, and as long as the metrics or movements that we're tracking to improve make sense,
Mhm.
we'll keep chipping away. But I mean, he trained into the ground. Like we worked him hard. Um,
Some baseball players are baseball, I feel, as a sport has been the sport that is the biggest, like they've embraced strength training heavily the past few years, more so than any other sports. Like in wrestling, Troy, you wrestled. I went to watch states wrestling. New Jersey's a big wrestling state. I didn't like it. It's just like two alligators
Really?
rolling around. Yep. Nobody lets go of anything. You're on your back and there's no points. The kid is like almost like, it's one step shy of an ankle lock. They just lace your leg and everybody's rolling around and twisting around. I don't like that style of wrestling anymore because it's almost like who has the guts to tear their ACL? Who has the
Yeah.
balls
Yeah.
to like
Yeah, that's
get
what they
hurt?
do. They're all right, I'm just gonna go as far as I can until ref calls potentially dangerous and then
Yeah.
move on from there.
And I feel like it's become a sport of obviously high technique, but like extreme flexibility of the hamstrings and the shoulder joint and the knee. And who's willing to tear an ACL, like doing it's not even funk, it's just
No.
never letting go of anything. and you don't even know like who's scoring. So I kind of didn't enjoy watching the state wrestling tournament, and I missed the nationals. I was going to go in Philly, but I missed it. So I don't really like what I've seen evolving in wrestling. Baseball, I
Now,
love.
do you think that also the same, way with strength training and so forth of doing like these fancy, like cool things? Do you think that carries over to now how kids wrestle, right? Like you're saying, like they're doing all
Sure.
this funk, if it's even funk. They see cool stuff on social media, like, oh, Carter Starachi just did this. Okay, but Carter Starachi's five-time national
He's the
champion. Like
he's an Olympian, right?
he's yeah, yeah. Yeah, he just
So
won the NCAA championship for the
right.
first time ever to
Or
win five.
Kyle Dake saying, "Hey, I do functional patterns." Well, I always tell them, listen, when Kyle Dake did his first podcast interview with Spartan Up Podcast, he told Joe DeSena his favorite lift is power cleans. And so Kyle Dake is already strong AF. And then
Yes.
going into functional patterns was good for him because he
Yeah.
built a tremendous base. He's a four-time national champ, four different weight classes, no red shirt from Ivy League. So they can't compare. And also, he's an absolute monster, not just a
Yeah.
freak. I mean, and so going back to they will copy something, but they can't do 10 pull-ups. I really
Yeah.
think if you're a athlete under 150 pounds, 20 pull-ups of any grip should be absolutely normal. You've got to be able to do 20. So I think this injury precedence is truly a lack of strength and a lack of durability, lack of GPP. You guys mentioned like sleds, carries. Um, they're just not durable, obviously, because of the lack of multiple sports. Your body just keeps doing the same friggin' thing over and over.
Yep.
So I think now it's those who survive are genetically, they have a genetic advantage. Some people, their bodies, just bottom line is they can't physically withstand the rigors of a certain sport, like in wrestling, knees hitting the ground over and over. So I think what we are doing, what you guys do, what I do, is what athletes need, but it's a piece of the puzzle, and we just can't control all the other pieces. That's why, really, the original model of being a physical preparation coach from the Soviet Union was the best because the physical preparation coach was also the sport coach. So maybe they did that grip test that Otto was talking about, but what they did get to see was they were doing multiple workouts every day. They had a very powerful coach's eye. They could see if the wrestler struggled during wrestling practice, they could simply say, listen, don't come and lift later. In fact, don't lift later and don't come back till Friday. And they give them like 2 days off. I've heard my buddy told me about this that Iowa is kind of getting into that, and I believe Penn State does that. There's a lot of individuality going on. Like from what I could see, Penn State is like, oh, Otto, you like to lift? Go ahead. Troy, you don't want to lift and you love to wrestle, but you're winning. Okay, you could spend 8 hours a day here if you want to. It's just like the training program you said. There's a skeleton model, and then there's this individualization because at that high level, athletes, if they believe in their program, even if it's scientifically incorrect, quote unquote, they will thrive and get better because they believe in it. So some guys might not work well in volume. And if a coach is smart enough to pinpoint that, he could say, hey, listen, normally we're on the mat 6 days a week. Troy is just going to do 5 days a week. Otto loves to be here, but maybe on Wednesday and Friday, because he's training so much, maybe we only let him train for an hour and then we make him leave. So that's where I think coaching is going with the best teams. And then, of course, your ability to recruit, high talent. But I think, and then at those levels, I also don't think strength and conditioning could really apply the way we apply it to high school and middle school. Like I said to my athletes in the high school today, who here is being heavily recruited by a Division I coach? Nobody. Okay. Who here is being even had any outreach from a D3 coach? Nobody. And then I tell them, guys, D3 is fucking hard. And nobody's from D3 is even reaching out to you. So it goes to show you we got a lot of work to do here, but everybody thinks I could do this exercise that Sam Sulik has done. And kids just don't understand, right? I got a kid that's his shoulder has been dislocating in wrestling for 2 years. And he said, "What do you think about bench presses to the neck?" I said, "It's horrible. It'll kill your shoulders." He's like, "Yeah, but every once in a while it can't be bad." I go, "Dude, you can't even do a pull up without it hurting your shoulder." And you're following, maybe he saw Sam Sulik or whoever do it. That's killing your body. But they will listen to the YouTube guy before they listen to the strength coach. I even said, I'm using OVR. And I said to one of the coaches, I go, "Dude, I've told kids, yo, you're not moving the bar fast at all. We need to go lighter." "What are you talking about? I felt
Yeah.
fast."
Yeah.
I said, they trust this machine more than they trust me.
Well,
That machine, that's crazy.
well, that's where the utilization of technology is just that's where we use it.
Yep.
Is you can't look at an athlete squatting or moving and say, yeah, that was about 8 meters per second. Like, yeah, that looks right. Like you get an eye for it in the right
Yep.
range, but rather than argue with the athlete, we just say numbers got to be above this.
Yes.
Don't talk to me, talk to the screen. Numbers got to be above this. Same thing we do with our speed work
And
when
they're
we have
used to it.
lasers. When we have lasers and they say, and if I'm trying to work with them or we're trying to work with them with a specific sprint technique, acceleration mechanics, and they're not getting it, I was like, okay, do what you were doing. Like sprint the way you were doing. Go ahead. Oh wow, that's like a tenth slower. That's not
Yes.
me. That's not me saying, oh yeah, right positions. Yeah, that was way better. They have nothing to go off of. Look at the number. Look
They
at the number.
trust the computer more. I actually spoke with a buddy of mine. He's a little older than me and he coaches sports. And I said, I think that this generation likes a younger coach who's just in their early 20s. And that would be you guys. I doubt you guys do what I'm about to say. But if they see that coach like touching his or her phone, like while coaching, they don't think that's bad. They're like, yeah, man, we're always on our phone. It's okay for them to be checking their Instagram while they're coaching us. So they think sometimes I think it's hard for the older guys to coach. Although, if you're maybe at a high level, maybe those older guys really respect the wisdom, that somebody's bringing to the table. So it was interesting for me. Like Tony Decker is the strength coach for Cornell football. Tony's in his 60s and his first profession was athletic trainer. So he bridges the gap of communication with all the moving parts. And I think maybe because it's the Ivy League, the kids are a little bit more cerebral. They don't look and say, "Hey, this guy's not young and he doesn't look like he could, bench 405." They're in, they're listening. So it's interesting what gets somebody to listen in this generation. It's very interesting.
I, I think a big thing that I don't know if we've talked about a ton, but I know I had a question for you, was community and atmosphere training, like in a weight room environment.
Yes.
Something that, as we go through this, as we train more athletes and kind of refine process and programming, um, we'll get better at that. But one thing that I think that we have down, but I wanted to ask you was a lot of times you say, how do you get an athlete to listen? Well, we have kind of a trickle down effect where we have the guys that have been with us the longest saying, listen to them, it works. And that keeps
Yes.
getting reiterated through each kind of generation of athlete we have through. So it becomes less about convincing an athlete to do something and more so just say, hey, you're just like him, or worse, starting slower than him. You can achieve it if you put this work in. And I think that that's been really successful for us. But I wanted to ask what your thoughts are because you mentioned the who's getting recruited by Division 3, Division 1. Something that we always tell guys is like you can get to, if that's the fruit, if that's the carrot that's going to get the athlete to train hard, you can play Division 3. You can play Division 1. I know one thing that Troy and I wanted was just someone to tell us, yeah, you can do it, as opposed to, I think you'll struggle to play at the Division 1 level. Like, okay, well, that was a lie. Like that was crazy to
Yeah,
tell.
being
So
at the Division 1 level was very interesting. You see so many high level high school kids get to Division 1 and they quit
yeah,
very quickly. And
yeah.
That
then
happens
Having
so often.
yeah, so then
every other
having
week.
having these kids like go off to like a big thing we do is to prep them for that college athlete experience. Like you
Yes.
walk in, you've already done stuff. A kid asked Coach Troy, "This is so hard. I don't want to do it. Like, what's the point of this?" That is the point. It's hard.
Yes.
Like
Yeah,
get
you
into
want to
that
play
mode.
college football? College football's hard. Like,
Yeah, shut your brain off and learn how to work because that is a skill is being able to not think and just take care of reps, those work tests. But the question I wanted to ask was, um, what mistakes do you find younger strength coaches or guys getting into this industry? What mistakes do they make that if you could go back would correct or rather enhance? Because you did a pretty good job. I haven't done a deep dive with underground strength and having that really strong community, but what things would you have done differently if you were to go back? You've probably spoken on this on a previous
Yeah,
podcast.
I don't know if I've spoken on it too much. I think where I was when I started, the timing was right and the place was right. So I was in a blue collar town where I grew up, but we were surrounded by some affluent areas. That's number one. Number two, there wasn't really any competition. Not too many strength coaches were doing this kind of training. So it was quite common for a 25 to 45-minute drive each way. And same thing, there weren't a lot of distractions with all these sport clubs. Travel baseball was a thing, but not to the point where you would be in the summertime every other weekend traveling by airplane. That was
yeah,
not, that wasn't a thing. Football workouts were a thing, but kids weren't overthinking stuff. So they would lift at school, go home, eat, and come and lift at the underground. And I was too dumb to make a whole lot of adjustments. We still did a pretty tough training and didn't really modify much volume. In season is when I would modify volume. One thing from a business standpoint, I didn't have to do it back then. We do it now for a couple of reasons. Two reasons mainly. Number one, I am older. I'm almost 50. So I'm a much bigger believer in strength training for the older population. But we didn't start training adults until about a year ago. And adults have been great. They're consistent. The only time they're really going to be gone is when it's vacation time. But with athletes, they are extremely inconsistent. And we have kids who live in our little 2 square mile town who could ride their bike to the gym, who say they're too busy. And so, unfortunately, the reality of training athletes today is really hard. I feel like if I could have done a couple things all over again, I would have been training adults in the mornings. I would have hired somebody and we would have done a 6 a.m. and a 9 a.m., something very basic like that. Number two, I should have bought a building back in those early 2000s when real estate was low. Now to buy a building is crazy expensive. And so when you own the building, you can have one business and you could run a podcast out of your building and pay rent to the business. So you could literally pay yourself and write everything off. There's a lot of advantages and you have an asset. So, woulda, coulda, shoulda, that's almost 20 years ago. I rented my first warehouse space. And then the location doesn't mean that one location will work the same. I was in a baseball facility and we couldn't even give it away. But on the flip side, I think today, like you guys are in a sport complex, I think that that's what should be done to cater to the convenience factor of how busy parents are. So let's say mom or dad has a kid in high school, the other kid's in middle school. They could be driving all over the place. And if they got to pick up, Jimmy or Susie in 1 hour, it's just too much. But if Jimmy or Susie could lift and then play baseball, or lift and then wrestle, or lift and then play volleyball, or fill in the blank sport, you can really succeed at a higher level from a business standpoint. So if I was to get a building, I'd put batting cages in there and I'd love to have a basketball court. Um, I could coach wrestling, but I just can't be on the mat. Like my right knee can't really allow me to do it. But I think marrying sport and strength training, athletic strength training is crucial, plus adults. And one thing in this town that I didn't do a great job of, but also the people at the time were not ready for it, was I didn't really engage. I tried to engage with our community, But and I openly say this, even if people in the town hear it, the people when I got to this town, if you didn't grow up in Manasquan and you didn't like come through this place, like you were nobody to them. You were only spoken to or listened to if your dad and grandpa grew up in this town and everybody knew you. So when Hurricane Sandy like crushed this town, I mean, I couldn't even give it away. I offered free training for every kid whose house was destroyed during Hurricane Sandy, which was a lot of people. We did, were, it took me until really this year to get kids from this 2 square mile town. Why? Kind of that old guard is moving out, not working in the schools, not really the people in charge. And it's now people my age who have kids or a little younger than me, and they're not so like close-minded and protective of where I grew up. And it's pretty crazy that some towns, you guys might feel it a little bit too. Like, hey, sometimes you feel like you're not welcome in a town where you're just trying to provide this, not just training, but a community and a mentorship to kids. And so, you know, coming here, we had kids only from the neighboring towns. We had nobody from the immediate town, which was insane. And then I've been in places where we had a great spot in North Jersey, but during COVID, our owner was like COVID crazy and basically scared off people. And so ran my business into the ground. So I left and we were in a martial arts facility. So after I left, the wrestling club owner left and then the jujitsu club owner left. And we could have succeeded if our owner, was ethical and not so crazy about COVID, which we all now know was just, it was really a lot of BS. So we had that. I was in a baseball facility where I, trained somebody, they interned under us, and we couldn't even give it away. And after a year of bleeding money, I shut it down. Well, guess what happened? The owner hires the intern who we were going to bring to our other gym, basically steals him, renames the gym, renames the thing. And so I've been around all that kind of stuff. But if I, looking back at it, it's hard to say what would be done different because in business, timing and location can make a major impact. So right now, I hate to admit it, I wouldn't do this because I don't believe in it, but gyms that really crush it are all those speed and agility places because it takes no guts to run around cones. And I know that will offend like real speed coaches, but it takes balls to have to get under that bar and fucking maybe this workout I might throw up and I could dog it running through cones and there's no threat, but there's a real threat of messing up a heavy lift and having to put my mind and body on the line, which, as you guys said, if you play football, wrestle, lacrosse, these contact sports where people break bones and break necks, you need strength training. I love like these coaches that are like, talk like everybody's just too strong and you shouldn't be strength training because it's unsafe. It's unsafe when you have an unqualified person running the weight room who doesn't understand safety, technique, supervision, adjusting the weights, the psychological aspects, how to assess people during a warm up to say, you know what, man, today ain't looking like a day where we're going to squat heavy. Today, you might even skip the squats. And so, what we do actually requires tremendous intelligence and art of coaching and science. And so, if I break it all down, if I was doing this all over again, my location would be very important. I'd look for a very affluent, densely populated area where people are not worried about 200 or 400 or $500 a month. And by the way, guys, like when I say that, my daughter's tennis since she was a kid has been so much money. And I know what the money is, but I was never like, never did I tell my wife and never did she tell me we can't do it. It just was what it was. It required private lessons. It required trips to Florida whenever we had a break. And I've had people pull up on me with Jaguars and fancy, SUV Escalades. telling me how this money's a problem, or they got tattoos all over their body. And
Yes.
so, yeah. And so I'm no dummy. I've been around this shit for a long time. And if I didn't have my own business, online and whatnot, then I would just get another job to pay for my kids' sports. And there's that saying, hey man, parents are always ready to buy that expensive bat and the new cleats, but they don't want to get a strength coach for their kid. And I would tell parents if the place is just all speed and agility, get your kid out of there because you need a performance center, what we do, which is strength, speed, power, body armor, confidence, mentorship, and guidance into what is the next, stage here. And so, I made a lot of mistakes. I also think when I was younger, I was very crazy, you know, um, the intensity, the way I spoke to kids. Being a dad made me very different as a coach. I really look for kind of a positive way to talk to kids, which I still sometimes make the mistakes about. But kids really get offended easily, even if you're just trying to joke with them. So all these things you must learn, like what Brett Bartholomew does with the art of coaching, learning how to communicate with people. Being a strength coach is really fucking hard. Like the knowledge required, and people think, hey, it's the same. Okay, if squatting is the same, why aren't we all beating West Side Barbell or whoever's the strongest gym now? I could say swinging a bat is the same. If it's all the same, why aren't I like, why doesn't my son just play in the majors? He swings a bat. Why isn't he playing for the
Why is my
Yankees?
son not Mark McGuire?
Yeah, why is he not Mark McGuire? And I remember those days. That was my early days teaching when he beat the home run record. Why? Hey, you wrestle, you shoot double leg takedowns. You should be able to beat Jordan Burroughs. He shoots double
Yeah.
leg takedowns.
Yeah.
Gable Steveson won the
Hmm.
Olympics with a go behind. You learn that on your like first day of wrestling
First
in
day.
kindergarten. Yeah, guy shoots, you snap or sprawl, and you spin behind him. He won the Olympics
Yep.
on the most basic thing that you could teach a 4-year-old. And so it's kind of communicating how things work. What was, I think, very good when I owned my gym in the early years? I don't do it anymore. I had a physical newsletter that went to our members, and it was just a big Word document that would get printed out 14, 15, 20 pages. It would be like welcoming new members, athlete of the month, stories, nutrition tips, photos. And I think the power, like, guys, right now there's like books piled higher than this is on books. There's books. I am a friggin' reading. It's my whole like is reading and learning, and readers are leaders, and readers they do, the people who could sit and focus are always more locked in than somebody who could just scroll through the phone. And so the timing, like I said, the timing of my business didn't have those distractions. Today everybody is distracted, and it really makes being a business owner really tough. You need a lot of business acumen. And so how do you maneuver away from being this like crazy business person? Immersion into the community. So do a lot of volunteer work with your football, with little league, with local hockey. Do a lot of stuff for the community and train adults. Training adults is so important. And I learned it even more so. A month ago, I didn't even live in my house for about 3 weeks because I was taking care of my parents. Mom broke her hip. Dad had triple bypass surgery. And then I'm looking on the internet. I see Andy Baker with his 70-year-old clients, a woman deadlifting 315, a man my dad's age pulling 405. Strength and building muscle for adults is a lot less complicated than training athletes, but it's very important because one day you're 28, and then in the blink of an eye, you're 48 and 68. And so I'm really trying to turn our town into like the strongest, fittest town in the Jersey Shore. So now my mission is more community oriented because I don't see that happening in little towns anymore. Like when I grew up, like, man, this town used to have a dominant football, wrestling, you name the team. And it's because everybody's doesn't want to come together. So I'm trying to do more things together. So I wouldn't say, hey, I did these mistakes. I would do them different because the way I ran my business in '07 through, the time of the popularity of the iPhone is not how I could run a business today. It's just different times. But my advice is to you guys, train adults. Um, if you could buy a building one day, hell's yeah, do it. And because if you could pay rent, you could, your mortgage will be about the same, and you just need to get approved for a loan to get a down payment. And one day you're going to own that building. And if there's no strength and conditioning, you could rent it out, or it could become a coffee shop and a podcast studio, or a place where you film all your online stuff. But the bottom line is, I've been paying other people for 20 years money that I'll never see. So I'm not a fan of that. And
Right.
then some people will say, "Hey, rent everything because if you own it, it owns you." I don't believe like that, but some people do. But get really involved with your community. Go back to your high school if it's not far away. Do stuff at that college anytime you can, and train all the youth teams. All the youth teams. I think today, I don't know if it's going to come to the Northeast like it is the South and the Midwest, but I feel like high school kids are just too tied up with all their travel teams and their high school coaches. Our biggest population is the middle school kids. So we don't have those mentors like we once did, or at least not enough of them. High school, college kids mentoring, a kid who trained with us from seventh grade all the way through college. We don't have those kids anymore. It's just a tougher, busier life, unfortunately. So I don't want to keep you guys, man. Do you guys have any closing thoughts? And also, I'll link videos up. Do you guys have a video, a gym tour video of good training?
A gym.
I definitely have a gym, like a pan of the gym.
I would love a tour of a couple
Yeah,
stories behind the pieces of equipment.
I gotta send you a picture of the sewer covers, the
Yeah.
manhole covers.
That's amazing. Well, do you know who
Yeah,
Dr. Ken Leisner is? He used to do that.
he would lift manhole covers.
Yeah, anything. I mean,
Yeah,
steel railroad ties and get them welded on. Anything he found, he would do it because he grew
yeah,
up in a gym in the late '60s where the guy was a frogman, early day Navy SEAL, and
yeah.
so underwater demolition team, those guys knew how to weld, so he would weld gym equipment. If you go on my YouTube, you guys would enjoy it. It's called Iron Roots. It's all history, old strength training history. That's where I feature like Dr. Ken, Zuber's Gym. I think you
Yeah,
guys
yeah,
will love it. So yeah, I would love a little video tour that I could post up on the blog with this.
yeah, absolutely. Like I said, the manhole covers. We got those during COVID when we didn't have enough weight in the garage, and then we had my dad. He knew someone at the highway department was able to drill holes in them, so they fit on the
Beautiful.
bar. They're like 180 pounds each. Like they're awesome. We would deadlift with them.
Yeah.
Otto did Zercher squats with them one day. They're awesome.
I'm
I'll send you
I
those.
can't wait. My neighbor's is a machine shop. So
Really?
pipes, yeah. So they've welded a lot of stuff for us, thick dumbbells and all that stuff. But those kind of people are rare. But I think Massachusetts, you could find them. Like blue collar is alive and well. I think you guys are in not so much the blue collar area. Natick is a very nice area.
Natick is a nice area. This whole area is pretty
Yep,
nice.
that is really nice. What any closing thoughts? Any questions I didn't ask you guys?
I'm sure I'll think of a million once we end the call, but
Yep.
no, really appreciate you having us
Yeah,
on.
this is awesome.
What's ways for the people listening? Of course, I'll link everything up, but any places you could tell them to follow you guys?
Yeah, you can follow us on Instagram, GUD_performance. My Instagram's Troy.shallow. Otto's is 29 Auto. Our website's gooperformance.com, GUDperformance.com. That's
Train
our
heroics, a lot
primary
of train heroic stuff,
Train
right?
Heroic. Yeah, we have programs, a bunch of different programs on Train Heroic.
That's great.
Same thing, GUD space performance on Train Heroic.
Very good. I like that you guys are doing that. That's what I would tell coaches in their early years to do. Hey, make sure you have an online presence and you're making money from more than one, you're getting a paycheck from more than one area. That to me is super important. That was for me everything during COVID. You know, people were scrambling during COVID. So if COVID was to happen now or some other shutdown, you guys have, it looks like 10 programs on Train Heroic, something like that.
Yeah, I think we're up to 13 or 14
Oh,
now. I'm
damn.
trying to
Good.
keep adding more as we think of and come up with new things people may be interested in, asking around what people want. If someone looks on there and is like, hey, I want to do this, but do you have a program for this? No, but I'll get you one, and
Yeah.
then boom, that gives us an idea, put it up on there.
Good. Good listening. You listen
Yeah,
to people, you hear what they want, and then also anticipating what people will need. That's something, right? You know, when I started training, speed and agility was not a thing. It became a thing because people like saw it maybe as a something unique and something different, and this is going to give me the edge. And now I really wonder if the pendulum will swing back where people are like, man, everybody's getting hurt and nobody's got muscle and nobody's jacked. And that's why I wanted to talk to you guys. I was like, we're gonna fucking talk about people getting jacked and
hell
strong and
yeah.
friggin' 100 reps of shrugs. Friggin' bring the internet back to life. All right. Strong Life Podcast. Make sure you connect with the guys, Otto, Troy Shallow. I will link up everything below. And on the Zach Evnish blog, videos will be up, links back to the guys, but Google them, seek them out, learn from them. Let's get back to 5-star reviews on the Strong Life podcast because I do giveaways for that. And go to the newsletter, zachstrength.com. And guys, hang tight. And I'll pause the recording and we'll have a proper goodbye. Thank you, everybody. Until the next time.